here to talk about candidate experience because we all know having a fantastic candidate experience helps us get the best candidates through into the interview process and hopefully into your organisation. So going to share some thoughts on how you can best do that today, but doing that by sharing some recent research that we've done into candidate experience and what employees are thinking about, what they're worried about and what they're looking for. So going to use some real customer insight and examples as to how our customers are delivering a great candidate experience. I should say I'm Neil from Tribepad. And I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Pitman, who is sitting over there somewhere, I hope. Oh, thank God for that. Or I'm going to have to do his slides. Compass are a long-time Tribepad customer, and so he's going to be sharing some examples of how Compass has delivered a fantastic candidate experience at scale when they're hiring thousands of people into customer-facing roles each year. So, right from the job ad through the application process and into the hiring process. So what I'm going to give you today is a sneak peek of some brand new research that we just completed before Christmas. We haven't actually published this yet, so you're getting the first look. And it's really about trying to get into what are employees and job seekers thinking about post-pandemic in 2023. What are they worried about? What are their career plans? What are they looking for? As we're heading into a recession, or we might already be in recession, I'm never quite sure. How does that impact what candidates are looking for and what that means for us as employers and recruiters? How do we appeal to those candidates who are looking around in the market? So I want to start with a quick show of hands. What do you think employees are currently most concerned about? So you've got three choices here. Is it job security? Is it their pay and benefits? Or is it flexibility? Everybody's got used to working from home, working hybrid, all that sort of stuff. So quick show of hands if you think job security is the thing most candidates are worried about at the moment. Okay, a smattering, not quite a third, maybe 25%. Pay and benefits. I would say that's more, maybe a third of people. Third choice, flexibility. Oh, okay, right. That's definitely got the most show of hands. Okay. I shall keep you on tenterhooks and come back and show you the results for that in a minute. But as we are a technology partner, sorry, I do have to do a very quick salesy bit. I'll speak as fast as I possibly can to whiz through this so we get back to the good stuff. Hello, we're Tribepad. We're a complete talent acquisition platform used by some of the UK's best-known organisations. We are a strategic challenger according to Fosway, and we're a market leader according to IDC. Right, that'll do. We work with, sorry, I have got one more slide. So we work with more than 100 of the best-known companies in the UK. So if you want to apply for to be a vicar at the Church of England, or stack some shelves at Tesco, or serve some sandwiches in Subway, a whole range of different organisations, from advertising the role, sourcing candidates, screening candidates, going through the hiring process, onboarding, video interviewing, all the way through into bringing those successful employees onto your organisations. It's an end-to-end technology platform that helps you do that. We're used by 25 million people in 16 languages all over the country. But we're based in Sheffield, and there's only about 50 of us, so we're a really small company. You get a really personal service. And yeah, that's it. We have a really comprehensive partner ecosystem. Delighted some of our partners are here today. Employ in particular, we're going to be talking about it in a bit. Because we know that actually you have a whole different set of technology challenges. There's some amazing different services out there, from recruitment marketing, candidate screening, background checks, all sorts of stuff that we can bring together into a seamless system so you can deliver a fantastic candidate experience end to end and get the visibility of the data and your hiring funnel so you can make incremental improvements and changes. Okay. Last bit on us, I promise, and then we get back to the research. We've also recently launched a service called Tribepad Grow, which is more focused on organisations who've got sort of 100 to 1,000 employees. So I know on that slide earlier we showed all the most famous logos that everybody recognises, but actually most organisations we work with are just like you. That's it. Right, fine. So back to the research. So I asked you about what employees, candidates are most concerned about at the moment. So I think most people said that people were worried about flexibility. I think that was the largest number of hands that were up. Now, in fact, what we saw right at the top, people are worried about pay freezes, and they're worried about reduction in pay value. Inflation, pay freezes sort of come together. Whether the world is too risky to move jobs, whether there's fewer jobs available. So if we were to sort of categorize this, actually pay and benefits is right up there in terms of, no bonuses, pay cuts, perhaps losing the number of shifts that you've got, so your actual income is reducing, or your income's staying the same, but because the world's getting more expensive, you feel like you're going backwards. Cost of living crisis, all that sort of thing. This is what's at the very top of employees' minds right now. But actually, job security is allied to that as well. We see layoffs happening. We see hiring freezes in place. I'm sure that's affecting all of you in recruitment right now. You're probably hiring fewer roles than you were this time last year. But also flexibility is definitely a concern. And in fact, it's the fifth highest on there in terms of having to work longer hours and potentially being forced back into the office or losing the flexibility that was there before. And that has an impact on the diversity of our workforce as well, because we know that can be disproportionate, particularly for female employees who might find it harder from family responsibilities to carry on doing what they want to do. So there's quite a lot going on in the minds of employees at the moment. They're concerned about lots of different things, and that has an impact on how they behave when they're looking for a new job and whether they're thinking about whether to move. So let's look at probably the single most important factor about whether this person is likely to be a candidate for the role you're looking for. Are they currently happy in their job? Because let's face it, if they're happy in their job, they're going to be pretty hard to move into the role you're hiring for. So about 50% of people say, yep, I'm happy in my job at the moment. So you sort of go, okay, well, that's good. As company owners and an employer, I'm glad at least half of my staff are happy. That sounds okay, but as I'm saying it, actually that doesn't sound very okay, because if 50% are happy, that means 50% aren't happy. Oh, bloody hell. Right, so if they're not happy, why are they not happy? I want to move jobs, but I can't find anything better. Okay. Well, we know we've got a really high employment rate, low unemployment rate at the moment. We know there are more vacancies in the market than there are candidates. So why can't they find a job, or why do they think it's too difficult to find a better job? I want to move job, but it's too time consuming, 30%. I want to move jobs, but I don't have the time and I don't want to retrain. So that's another one as well. So quite a lot of factors here where nobody's said, I'm not happy in my job and I'm absolutely definitely moving and it's happening tomorrow. Just literally nobody's answered that. Why? So if we can address these problems here where they can't find a better role or it's too time consuming, there's a potentially huge pool of candidates out there for you to fish in. So what can we do about that? How can we get the messaging right in your career sites, in your job ads? How can we make the process easy and inviting so that candidates aren't put off and don't think, oh, it's going to be too good. I like that. I like the look of that, but it's just going to be too hard work. I'm too busy. I've got too much going on in my life. What can we do to make it easier and simpler? So then we ask them, okay, well, if it's too difficult and if it's too time consuming, what is it in the application and the searching experience? What is putting you off? What do you expect to see in the application process, and what do you think is unnecessary? So, as I say, 30% of people say it's too time consuming to find a new job. I just realised it's like a little fence here. I feel like I'm in the dock. Right, yes, Your Honour, I didn't do it, I promise. Anyway, back to this. So unsurprisingly, the vast majority of people expect to have an in-person interview. Post-pandemic, where of course in-person interviews were pretty much impossible for lots and lots of us, interesting how quickly the market has shifted back to this being the number one expectation. So it's not to say that video interviewing doesn't have a place. We have a video interviewing product. There's a couple of video interviewing service providers here as well. Really important part, particularly in volume screening, but actually most people expect to have an in-person interview still. Likewise, most people are expecting to have to put in a CV or fill in an application form. So is that one of the things that's making people go, oh, my CV's a couple of years out today, it's going to take me ages to do it, that application form's going to take me an hour, I really can't be bothered, there's another episode of Happy Valley on, I'll watch that instead, right? So is that putting people off as well? People are expecting to have interviews with line managers, but only a third of people are expecting to talk to HR. Now, in hindsight, maybe we could have worded that question a little bit differently as, are you expecting to have a screening interview with the recruitment team before speaking to the hiring manager? Or are you actually only expecting one interview and you think this is going to be a pretty quick process? You see horror stories on LinkedIn where people say, I've had 5 different interviews and now I'm going back to be spoke to the director for the 3rd time. People are going to drop out of processes like that. Interesting challenge as we get lower down where the blue bar is what people think is unnecessary. So 1/3 of people are looking at assessments and tests and tasks and assignments as being unnecessary. And all the research shows that really good tests, whether they're technical tests, aptitude tests, personality tests, specifically sort of work-based questions, are far better predictors of successful hires than a CV. We all know CVs are biased and full of rubbish and not a very good way to hire people, but actually that's what candidates expect to do. But maybe that's just what they're used to. So there's a challenge therefore for us in recruitment. How do we move through the perhaps inertia and resistance we have from hiring managers who are used to hiring like that, and the inertia and resistance from candidates who are expecting to be hired like that, and how do we go back to that problem where actually a lot of candidates think it's too time-consuming and too difficult? How do we design an application process that's simple, quick, and actually tests the behaviours and skills and experience you want, rather than getting people to fill out a 2-3 page document that's full of rubbish? Anyway, so what I'm going to do at this point, I could talk about this for ages. I'd actually like to introduce Dan Pitman. So Dan's a recruiter with loads of experience, worked at Compass and other organisations, worked in healthcare, worked in hospitality, a volume recruiter for a long time. So Dan is going to share his experience of what he's been doing at Compass and how they're delivering a fantastic candidate experience at scale. And then I'll pop back at the end and we'll hopefully have some questions. So thank you. Dan, over to you. Thanks. The right hand.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm Dan Pitman and I work at Compass Group, and just for everybody's sake, I don't have a professional picture for LinkedIn. Unfortunately, this is the best that we've got, and I come to these events and nobody seems to want to take a picture of me. So if we could get one of those going, that'd be great, and I can actually update that finally. So a little bit about me. I know people usually start these with a little bit of background, and they usually have something that makes them a little bit more relatable, so things about their family or their cute dog or something like that. I don't have any of that, so we're just going to jump straight into me as a professional individual. So I am a bit of a data and tech nerd, and this is where I've made my living over the last few years. As Neil alluded to, I did try my hand at recruitment. It turns out I was not very good at it at all. My analytical brain didn't allow me to kind of like deal with people on a daily basis. I kind of found that very, very difficult to be consistent with people. But in that same space, I did find that I really, really enjoyed the analytics side of it, which is kind of what led me to this data and technology niche that I found myself in. I really like making things synergize. I really like making things work well together. And this lends itself very, very well to today, where everything that I'm going to go through is delivered by 2 partners that are actually in this room, one of which is Tribepad and the other is Employ. So I implore you to go and check both of those out after this, but everything that you see here has been delivered in synergy between those 2 people. So I work for Compass Group, and a little bit about Compass Group before I go on. It is a contract caterer, so we are in the hospitality industry. And the hospitality industry, with, I would probably say, the exception of driving and healthcare and private care, is probably one of the most challenging industries, because chefs they just don't exist anymore, unfortunately, and it's a really, really difficult industry. However, having said that, we have around 35,000 employees, which is a lot. The vast majority of that is frontline. And of that, we have roughly about 3,000 concurrent vacancies at any given time. So when Neil was alluding to talking about at scale, this is the kind of scale that we're talking about. So we have a lot going on, and it's ever moving and always flowing. So it's really, really difficult to keep track of. And we, as a central team, are quite small. So all of our recruitment is outsourced to our hiring managers. They get on with it. We just deal with the attraction and the kind of the systems kind of thing. So that's where we sit. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 things today. One thing is candidate experience, of course, that's why you're all here. The second thing is optimization. So we're going to have a look at that, about how we have particularly optimized the way that we do, particularly around our candidate marketing and things like that. And then I'm just going to touch upon what's next and what we are focusing on in the future now that we've been through this bit of a hectic journey. So every single person in this room has probably seen this. Oh, I've clicked that too soon. Every single person in this room has seen this. And there are little boxes around this, but it's not showing up on there. So I've probably got to redo that when I do these slides. They're a little bit too light. But this is the first part of the recruitment process, and I think everybody knows it. We've got interest, click through, apply start, and apply complete. What I'm going to focus on here from a candidate experience point of view is these two here. These two are where we saw the most improvement in what we actually implemented, and we got the most out of it at the other end. So apply start to apply complete, converting those people who started your application process and actually moved straight through to actually complete their application. We saw a really profound effect on what we did there. So if you take anything away from this, there might be elements of your recruitment process that you haven't thought about that you might be able to leverage and get a little bit more out of. So we, as Compass Group, we started off with, Embrace Yourself, we started off with this as a recruitment website, which I will call hectic, to say the least. We started off with this, and to their credit, this was about 5 years ago, so I will allow them to sort of let this be bygones be bygones. But I don't know if anybody in this room can see, but can we see where this job search button is? It's hidden in there, but for those of you who can't see it, it's right there. So I think what they were trying to do here was trying to sort of, separate the men from the boys. If you can find it, well done, you can actually apply to us, good job. And the candidates that we actually ended up with, you can pass the test. But in this day and age, we don't really want to do that. We want to make this as easy as possible for people. So we set about rebranding ourselves, and we set about completely wiping the slate clean and starting again. So we went for these really, really bold colours, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of in this presentation already and are probably already sick of. I know I'm sick of this neon yellow already, but I look at it every single day. But from a candidate point of view, it's nice and bold, it's nice and fresh. It gets us a little bit more attention than the old pedestrian brand was. But this is really what we're talking about here. This is the candidate experience part that I've come to talk to you about. We took this brand and we applied it, and this is a piece of technology that Employ deliver for us in conjunction with Tribepad. So the two pieces of software synergize together to create this piece of map technology that allows our candidates to apply to whatever they see fit, and they get there really, really quickly. So I've got a quick video that I'm just going to play, and I'm going to talk through as it's playing. So this is me applying for a role and being extremely decisive about what I want to apply for. So you're going to see me go through it really, really quickly. I'm looking to be a chef in Birmingham, which, if you can't tell by my accent, that's where I'm from. And so I click on this, I have found the job, then I go to view full job, and we're about to enter into the part that really made the difference. So now we've jumped straight into a piece of technology that sits over the top of Tribepad and is delivered by Employ. And it's a little chat bot, and you can see I'm applying for this in a very, very conversational manner, and I'm going through it at the speed of light, so I wouldn't recommend doing it this fast if you're actually applying for a role. That's not my real telephone number either, so don't bother trying to ring that. So yeah, just don't even worry. And there's a little bit of housekeeping there to say that I consent to stuff that we're going to do with your data. Obviously, I didn't read it, but that's it. That's where we've ended up. I couldn't actually speak fast enough to keep up with that. So we've just gone through that whole process really, really, really quickly. And what happens now is when I click yes, submit, I'm obviously not going to do that, but because the video's finished. But we then hand this whole process off back to Tribepad, and Tribepad puts a little bow on it for us, and the candidate drops into the ATS, and everyone's very, very happy. So that was really quick and slick. And I think the most important point here is that we didn't actually ask any questions differently than we did before. We're asking those same questions, we were just asking them in a different way. So we've asked them in the chatbot environment, and the result is pretty alarming, actually, to say the least. So going back to this funnel, here's where we are. We're at this comply complete section. And then, of course, we've got the rest of the recruitment process down here. These two sections combined is what we just looked at there. So people have actually found the job that they're looking for, and they've actually started it, but getting them to complete it is sometimes quite a challenge. We saw a 42% increase in just by changing that. So we didn't change anything else. We didn't change the questions that we were asking. We didn't change job titles. None of that. All we did is we just put that chatbot in and we just let it run. And after a couple of months, we saw this level of increase, which was absolutely phenomenal to see. So I think in terms of your recruitment journey, think about parts of it that you may have neglected, because I think when people go, oh, okay, we need more for this advert and we need more on the whole, more applications, I think the initial inclination is to go, we need to spend more on advertising. There might be some low-hanging fruit within your candidate journey that can get you this kind of result. So just a little reminder there too, and just our experience. And of course, going back to the scale that we're operating at with those 3,000 concurrent vacancies, you can only imagine how many more applications that is. So that's a lot more. But with that in mind, okay, that's all well and good, but 42% extra of nothing is still nothing, right? So what about those roles that are really, really, really hard to attract, and that we can throw all the candidate experience stuff at it under the sun and it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference? Well, I took inspiration from these guys. Now, stick with me on this. Honestly, this is going to make sense. There is a metaphor here that is going to make sense. When a farmer has a bunch of sheep, they have a flock, and what happens when one of the sheep gets sick? They don't immediately medicate the entire flock. They take that sheep out, they make them better, and then they put them back into the flock. I bet you everybody in this room has seen Clarkson's Farm. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So we took this same analogy and we thought, okay, well, not all of our roles are sick because we've got 42% more. So we need to start looking at the ones that actually need our help. And it turned out that when we really started to analyse this, we're only looking at 10%. That's really all there was as far as our parameters were concerned. The hiring managers might think differently, but we don't have an infinite pot of money. So it was only about 10% that really, really needed the help. And with this in mind, we decided to start sectioning them out into something that we affectionately called the holding pen. I told you that it would actually make sense with this sheep analogy, so thanks for sticking with me. What we do is we have a dynamic system with Employ, again, underpinned by Tribepad, so everything's being synergised between these two suppliers. If an advert has been live for over X number of days, whatever you want to call that, for this purposes, let's call that 7 days. And if an advert has generated less than X applications, let's call it 5. That then dynamically gets added into an AppCast campaign bucket, which as a whole has a complete budget sat over the top of it. And what happens is the jobs just flow in when they reach these parameters, and they spend money until they have actually reached those parameters. And then once they've reached those parameters, they drop out. And that's it. That's it. But you can imagine for 3,000 concurrent vacancies, this saves us so much time not having to have conversations with hiring managers. What do you need? How much do you want to spend? Et cetera, et cetera. We just let the tech take care of it completely. So the outputs of this have been our organic traffic has been completely maximised because we let all of our jobs breathe before we spend any money on them. We don't immediately start throwing money at them. I can imagine there's probably quite a few people in this room who, as soon as they get a rec form, will immediately start spending money on it. So there's something to be said there about maximising organic traffic. Zero budget waste. We haven't wasted a penny because as soon as we get to the desired number of applications, it drops out the holding pen. Parameters control, which has been phenomenal for me. When things start to go awry, we can adjust those parameters and we can change them a little bit to make it so that more jobs fall in or less jobs fall in, which has been great for budget management as well. And then my favourite thing is the fact that it's fully automated, which means that I personally don't have to do that much work. So now that it's set up, we can just let it run and everyone's happy. So just another little bit there where you can work a little bit smarter with particularly in a volume recruitment and where you have a lot of concurrent vacancies. Something to be said there around managing your vacancies a little bit smarter when it comes to advertising. So what's next? We realised that we did all of this external tech and we made it really, really nice and we spent a lot of time doing it. We spent all that time for the external candidate, which is a very, very big addressable market. That's absolutely where we should have started. But we realised that we have a whole internal group of people that we haven't addressed. So what we did is we took all of that same tech, we basically copy-pasted it, we put a little bit of an authentication tool on top of it, and we created an internal careers hub. And you can imagine for 35,000 employees, this has been quite successful. So it looks a little bit like that, and we have exactly the same chatbot that sits over the top of it. We just ask ever so slightly different questions. And I think the key thing that we did here is we now understand our redundancies a hell of a lot better. Because as a large organisation, it's extremely difficult to say to a candidate, you're starting the redundancy process and trying to find you a suitable role within the area with any level of accuracy is extremely difficult if you don't have some central location to go to. So now we've given them this. We've given them the tools to be able to search for their own vacancies. They then list themselves as redundant, and then all hell breaks loose when that actually goes through, and there's like alarms that go off and whistles and a klaxon and stuff like that to say this person's been made redundant and they're actually applying for a role. You need to do something about it as the hiring manager. So we've done a lot there to reduce our risk around redundancy and also support our employees in a really tech-savvy way. So those are the ways that we've approached candidate experience, and that is why candidate experience probably should be at the top of your agenda. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Neil.
Thanks. So, I mean, hopefully some really interesting stuff there and some really interesting results. And, just thinking back to the poll that Natasha put right at the start of the morning, finding suitably qualified candidates and finding candidates from different backgrounds, well, I think was everybody's pretty much number one problem. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe they're already there in your application funnel, but they just don't complete the application because they find the process too difficult, or maybe they're frustrated with the process because they're applying for jobs that they see on job boards that have been advertised, where you've actually already got 50, 100 applications, and therefore your hiring managers are slowed down and swamped with the screening process. So it all comes back to this candidate experience of why are they not moving? Because the process takes too long, it's too difficult. Maybe there's a solution here to use technology and use the techniques Dan talked about in terms of finding ways to make it quicker and simpler and smoother and less work for you. So a couple of quick takeaways. People are worried about money, they're worried about security. So think about what your career site looks like, think about how your job ads are worded and how you're describing your benefits and how you make it easy for candidates to apply. Customer experience all the way through from making the ad really nice and accessible and easy to consume on a mobile device, which is 95% of job searches are on mobile, so make it really simple for people to quickly read those top 2 bullet points and decide if they want to click through. And then once they do click through, how Dan was talking about making the process slick and quick and easy and get them into your funnel so that you can move them along. Use the data that's there, because actually the answers should be easy to get out from your platform to understand where you've got kinks in the funnel which are stopping the process, where you've got too many candidates in and you don't need to be advertising and you're wasting money and just creating work. The data should come out of your platform and should help you make those decisions that help you be as effective as possible and deliver a great candidate experience. And then finally, there's some fantastic tech partners here today. There's loads and loads of amazing technology companies in this country who can help you, and they should play nicely together, because very rarely does one platform suit everything. So having open APIs, having people who want to work together to deliver a solution for you and your customers is really, really key. That's it. We'd love to take questions if we've got time, Natasha.
Yeah, absolutely. Round of applause first of all, though.